Well, then here is another one. This is another moment where there is here the expositor, and hopefully there is the listener, the patient, discerning listener. Well, the limits of language are the limits of reality. What does it mean? What do we want when we want an explanation? Knowing that the limits of language are the limits of reality. What can be transferred? What can be communicated? Because language creates a medium to communicate, and what communication means is you can see my thoughts, or you can understand something that I'm trying to express to you, and vice versa. This is the medium for communication. So when we're disclosing and trying to push further and broaden and expand the boundaries of limitations, because there is an inherited default boundary. There is a default limitation to how much can be communicated in one's local thinking style. This is what is the natural tendency, how far one is destined to forage, how far one is destined to explore, given what they are born into, given the conditions, circumstance, and factors they are born into. All these factors are predetermining. If we would like to distill and redistill and reduce the predestination, if you like to take a reductionist approach to predestination, is the build up and maintenance of factors. And factors are all over the place. They are it's calculating to create certain moments. Well, I have a paper out here, of course. I have writing on and discussions about and thinking of several interacting topics throughout this paper. This is one of the paragraphs of the collaboration of the Ouroboros and its arrangement of duplicated subunits to confirm the identity, the phenomenological feeling of inherited experience that exists and provides across instances to access the missing absent by the quantum question, what is there? Men exist to go, and in so doing, effervesces history. Emergence means something new. Emergence means something new that arises, which wasn't there before. And time conditions every event possibility that will undergo the formality of actually becoming, to do so under the psychic constraint of daily images of eternity. These daily images of eternity are the sunrise and sunset, and these are metronomic. It's a metronomic increase. So from these daily images, there is development, there are changes, and there are consistencies. So the limits of language are the limits of one sense, creativity is what's trying to elbow its way into expression, but as before, limits of language are the limits of yours, and everyone's reality. I mean, point to those with the religious bent and this reviewing, reconstruction, reconsideration, reimaging of what salvation is. Salvation is an apprehension. It's an apprehension of some of the details and factors of the world. And salvation is an understanding of just what a human being is and what to respond to, and the unnecessary, not unnecessary, undeserving favor of the divine. Call it grace. Salvation and grace go hand in hand, because the thing that saves man is a thing that understands man, and man understands himself, and he's better able to work with his budget optimally. So this is a way of reconfiguring the idea so it's comprehensible. Salvation, it's an act of comprehension, and this goal here is this destiny of Eden, is what's required, is this state where man can occupy it with a difference of what he has now. And it's only likely to be so because this is the first time man has intentionally designed an aspect of his future. Other times he's been pushed, he's been surprised into it, he's been grandfathered into it, but now now he has a hand in this future specific aspect. And the writing goes on in this churning and mixing fashion, where it's taking ideas and combining them, and it is taking ideas and combining them to create to create higher resolution of the explanation, and all these things pertain to this one figure, that's a conglomerate but it's a conglomerate in the same way that when one adopts a mode of existence, they're adopting from what they have absorbed. So there is a mixture, but it only operates as a disposition. And similarly, it's what the channel is centered on. There are different facets that interact to create a feel for what the message is. And the vibe should be of, this is a human that lives in a world just as you do, lives in the same life world that you're under sky blue and under the daily images. So what the proposition could be claiming, it's not foreign, it's not disconcerting. It shouldn't perplex, because it is the same world that we're referring to. And if there is a misunderstanding, it's because there's a change that is probably, or an expansion or clarification that's necessary. But as far as what is going after, is that instead of playing tug and war over the creator, they should be combining their efforts to create this state, to create it as an institution, so that it's stable and it's expressed to every one of us who are introduced into the enterprise. But because there is not an institution, it does not it's not designated permanence. So you have to fiddle for it. You have to be wishing you were born in the right family to gain it, maybe to have luck or chance on your side. But these are distractions and retardation away from the goal. And the goal should be instantiated so as to be permanent in the world, because the humans are occupying the world on the constant. They are constantly moving from non-existent to existence, and this is becoming so electronically efficient that from the moment they're born, they're being taken in the wrong direction without having a chance to build the world when they're at their wisest. They grow and they gain enlightenment too slowly, but they get aged rapidly, very fast, and that's that imbalance that goes on, and that has to be resolved. It has to be corrected, because what is happening here is that so much magnitudes of potential are being moved from birth to the grave without having been ignited, without having been directed. And this itself, this is a crime against humanity. This is a crime against the soul, and it needs to be resolved. It needs to be changed. And that's why they're a change agent pushing up from the unconscious to get in and intercede in this intergenerational, perpetual battle against his birthright. And this is a state of man, because at the end of the day, he is God. There's no other stand-in for that title. And the closest stand-in is the one that has authority over the dominion. But yet he's not situative. He's not living up to his billing. But there's room for improvement. But the occupying of this area, of this space, color the area, por I, r square, color the area, the occupying of this area, and the systematic planning to occupy this area itself is an issue. So things go by and time goes by, and before man knows it, he grows up so fast, he's gone. He never figured out that he was duped, that he was burglarized. He doesn't feel it. But the only way to win in this arms race is for epiphanies to start to populate the imagination. And while this epiphany populate the imagination, man starts to tug and think and ask questions. And these questions are revelatory. These questions are resurrecting. And these questions are what, in the end, helps him save himself. Because this belief that there is a destination and there will be a period where there is an outsider that comes in to resolve the issue, it's disempowering. And it doesn't need to be disempowering, because man is more than capable of solving the problem, and changing his state of affairs independently. He has this he has this ingenuity. Think of moments where the combined mental force of humans have done every man's piece of technology is indistinguishable from magic. I mean, when man gets into these zones, he's hyper creative, and similarly, he's equally as disastrous. But the capacity lies with him. This is disempowering belief, and exactly next to it is the fact that we should be refreshed by arguments, that we are constantly reminded of what reality is, because we are thrown into the thing to begin with. There was a moment far before we immersed ourselves, because even before man becomes mature enough to identify himself, for a prolonged period there he's going through infancy, and he's a tween, he's a teenager, or he's going through puberty. They're just a spanning time where this is all biology. This is all biology. There's little self. There's little true personality. There's little true mature formation of the ego. So, but it's accelerating, because nowadays with the ubiquity of technology, that frontal cortex is being fed information upon information and upon information that is that perhaps maturing the cortex, but from being a tabula rasa on mother's knee, that's information that needs to be examined. For one can truly know anything, they have to disbelieve all that they already know. Well, all these things they already know, they're subliminal, they're unconscious. One does not go in to question these realms. They're hidden from the from conscious access. So it should be, because man is plastic, he's malleable. His template, his upbringing should be constructed to his movements. There's a signal, and then there's a signal from nature, and there's a correction from nurture. Ideally, there is that balance, so that the individual grows up into what they're supposed to be by their temperament and their interests and their tendencies. We're human first. That's where this starts from, and returning to basis is always advisable. Returning to basics is always advisable, because we're human first. That's where the argument starts from, and then we become the angels or characters of the imagination. But it starts in this incremental It starts in this incremental way where we have a plan and we're moving towards it. But it starts with next and behind it. It starts with organization. So there's mobilization is organization. And these are movements. Things of the world have to be moved. So remind yourself what the world is like. Think about it in deficiency of rights. It's always been handed down to him. Civil rights, women rights, human rights, rights in general. These are things that were scarce to those that belong to and had to be moved and shuffled across to balance equations. But in balancing equations, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and stay in this hand that if one begins in a situation that is advantageous to them, they are not likely to create they're not likely to create possibilities to lose their advantage, and then it becomes a tug of war again. It becomes a struggle. But these are not questions of struggle if man is thinking enlightening. It's man's thinking enlightening. These are done deals. But it's simply that he still holds on to the material, the pleasure and what do you call it? Sensual pleasures. He still holds on to the sensual pleasures of life. Yeah, speak of the espousal being awfully too far off, but at the same time, it can help but try to hurry the passage, or even move the passage to whatever the preposition is located. But at least in the fact that we understand it does not go, it's not travel. It remains, and it's in this elusive state from infinity X to infinity Y. And then, but all the magic happens, all right, in the intermediary, where presence is. Well, can speak of what presence is for as far as we can, or the next chapter reads like this. Was one in the triage waiting diagnostic results, but the jury was still out on the prescription. Now he can utter an understanding that is in times that could not be described in many words. I love the sentence there, because now he can utter an understanding. We spoke about it before, and this is a coincidence that it matched up this way. But the fact of understanding and being able to express things in many words is an indication of expansion, and that's where maturity is, and intergenerationally. Because what we have here is maturity in generation. 2, think about it chronologically, immaturity in generation 2, it's not in maturity in generation 6, are both maturities, but they're of different content. And this content itself relates to the increase, to the step, to the velocity of time being exponential, because now time is occupied by the events that occur within it, and the products of those time period are also characterized as not only events but minds that are connected to these events. Man is the measure of all things. Thinking of things in this the context of chronology, from time equal 0 up to present, and we are considering exponentiality and what are the contents that occupy each iteration. So I love that sentence for that fact, and because what prior couldn't mean to what the next time is, that's all nature and unconscious, and how it formulates. Because you cannot move into a space not verbally describable, by articulating, you call upon the paradigm to commence the proceedings expected when the species variant prepares to appear beyond the horizon. And this is all preparatory language. It's when a variation of a species, this is speciation. This is branching off from the parental momentum, traditional momentum, into something else that's just as, that is innovative. Revelatory comes in mind again, because usually what these steps mean is that it solves a problem backwards. So there was an issue, and then these steps resolve them. But sometimes just steps can be the linear step of time to cover what's clear so far, or what's trying to express itself. While articulating, you call upon a paradigm to commence the preceding expected when a species variant prepares to appear beyond the horizon. Time has expressed that history is not so far so good, but a working process for a progression of productive things must happen faster than counterproductive things. You mean progression of productive things, right? That things that are increasing must happen just as fast, must happen faster than things that are destroying, and this is that ladder and the rungs of it, going up and then going down. The Red Queen said, in this kingdom, you have to run just as fast to stay in the same place. It reminded of the undeveloped nations and what their struggle is to cross that threshold from what they are into what is a possibility upon it. But there is a possibility it will be a magical time when these now only thought products are actually installed in these communities, and they fill out, let's call them, they fill out the vacancies. Spoke about it and notice, right, and things faster than that. But here's something else that pops up the page, but it's halfway through the paragraphs, and it reads like this: because their intelligent, intentional deals are associated with higher stakes, it's befitting he be reprimanded for premeditated actions unbecoming of knowing man by the contemplative exclusion principle. Oh, that is ludicrous. I can't believe who wrote this. Yes, speaking of yours, but speaking being possessed by a different archetype when these doing the writing process. Because their intelligent, intentional deeds are associated with higher stakes, it's befitting he be reprimanded for premeditated actions unbecoming of man by the competitive exclusion principle. That's just competitive exclusion principle. That's just survival of the fittest, or survival of the most deserving. And deserving gets into the play because the world is not just natural and then in hierarchy and dominance hierarchy rather, or food chain. It's not just that, but what deserving means is that there's a third party that plays its role in human affairs, because man is higher stake. Because he's conscious, events mean something more than it will mean to the rest of the animal kingdom that's unconscious, but can carry on their habitual responsibility, getting shelter, getting food, not being something's dinner, but finding something to be your dinner. So all this game goes on, but man plays at another state because he's rational. So it makes him clever, it makes him more deceitful, and in turn, these are worth more in weight. So it's considered in this way that good things happen to those who are exerting a high conscious behavior, traits, actions. Those who are exerting their consciousness productively or righteously, and those who are exerting their consciousness unrighteously. So there are deserving feedbacks for each one of these modes and styles. Intelligence, blah, 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 but those characters may continue to exist. Difficult in the environment will eventually become extinct in proportion of individuals carrying the advantageous. Yeah, and this is just getting into Darwinian talk. Well, it's not labeled here, but there is that. There is also that. But even this paragraph wasn't referring to Darwin directly, but it's referring to in the same way there is a similarity between how the human world is and what, because also that he is nature, and then there's a competitive aspect that goes on in how that is, but but the data here is jumbled. It's not the same as it is in the jungle. There are different aspects. It's playing with different aspects, but generally it's the same caveman software that operates, but it's not as predominant as it is in the animal world. So as far as the Newtonian and the Darwinian schema of the world, or Einsteinian, but instead of even thinking of these in terms of notable characters, think about them actually what the ideas of these characters was. So eventually we'll drop out those guys to just abbreviate it to the idea itself, and I believe that is clearer. So because we're thinking of the word here in motion, I think the word here in the sphere, in the orbits of the planet around themselves, and also think about it geomagnetically, and now get into it and sort of think about it as frequency and as waves. Think about it as the wave spectrum. Think about it from radio waves to light spectrum, and think about it to microwave. So that's another layer to interpret it. And now install Darwin and put in Wallace there, put in the variation of species and their tendency to perpetuate in variation. So then add that layer to and add the evolutionary vector, so that you continue down the line chronologically, and then add this philosophical spin here now of telos, but then also add that religious spin of eschatology towards the end there, and then apocalyptices, and then how history, how this movement and this velocity of time, this exponentiality, how all of this is a reverberation of eschatology. It's a reverberation of the end, because it's being called to. But it's not being called to it directly. It's being called to it in facets and differences and diversity, because it's the attractions of events rather than it's attraction of events, and then the amalgamation of these individual attraction for events. It's this amalgamation, how it changes over time, that is leading to the attraction. But it spoke about it in the beginning, that it's predestined, but it's not predestined. It's not predestined exactly, but it's also predestined exactly, right? And then they're immediately contradictory, because it both carries it and it does not carry it, because it couldn't be singular. It couldn't be it's binary, but it couldn't be definite. It couldn't be definite to one that it is not predestined, because because it's saying it similarly as the question with Wittgenstein, that he's conversing with his student, and famously, and the student goes, "Oh, you can see why people thought and the sun went around the earth." And he said, "Oh, well, why? Why then do you think people thought the sun went around the earth?" And the student replies, "Oh, because it looks that way." And then here is the punchline that Wittgenstein gives. He says, "Oh, and how would it look if the earth went around the sun?" And then this is a perfect example. It's why it's cropped and is used here, because it's a perfect example of giving the difference in it, by giving the iridescence, because it appears as that, but it's almost like alternative precession that, and meaning that technically, that think of precession, this gradual circling of the axis, and that change, or think about it in reverse, and it's trying to use this to say that it's a certain type of figure in physics here that it's impossible to distinguish its outside from its inside. So it's a contradictory, but it's not a contradictory, because both points are valid. So all these are examples to describe what that means to say that it's not predestined, because in each moment there is a play of it. If you can get deep down, sensitive and microscopic with it, there is the play that goes on between the spark of determinism and the spark of non-determinism and true free will. Before the conversation starts about free will, we got to speak of self-control. How much self-control does the self have? Before we move on to things of how much free will is imbued to them, is bestowed on them. So yes, and then that goes on from there. But that's some things again to think about, to ruminate over, to consider, because well, there's so much to talk about here, but it should be left for other arguments and other discussions.